The Wholeness Network. Awaken to the reality of wholeness.
We are so excited today to be able to host Craig and Jenny D, and we're so thankful you're here.
Thank you.
Thank you, yes.
And it was a little miracle that we found them for the network. I wanted some fitness experts. We've been talking about who we should bring onto the show, but we really wanted someone who understood that balance of the holistic approach, not just the body, but how does the mind affect the body? How does the spirit affect the body? And as I was searching and read through some of your information, I felt like, oh, these people get it. They're the ones. And so let's start by having you tell us your story.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for having us. Yes. We're honored to be here and all the way in from Philadelphia, which is just so much fun. And you really hit kind of our entire story right on the head where you said it's not just about the fitness with everything. And it's interesting to me because our background actually comes from corporate finance. And so most people don't know that.
Corporate finance into this.
Would lead us into this, right? But it really started back when I finished my master's, and I was, strangest thing, it was in finance, and I was interviewing for personal training jobs at gyms, and I was interviewing for positions in finance, right? Two totally different things, but because my love has always been with the human body and health and fitness and wellness, but I thought I needed to go into something else to make money. As someone in their early 20s, how am I going to make money to support myself? And so I made that decision to go the financial route. Clearly that was right because it led us together eventually to do that. And so coming out of 2010, which was when we got married, we had found each other. It was actually a third marriage for me and a second marriage for Craig. And so we were blending families together at that time. And shortly after we had our daughter together in 2011, I finally decided it was time for me to go back to the side of health and wellness. And I thought, well, I better get all the certifications for it. So I became a personal trainer with the intention of helping those in the corporate world stay well while they're on the road all the time traveling. How can they eat? How can they move? What can they do on the road, in the car, in a hotel? And God had a different plan for us, and he made that very clear. There was no mistake, where within several months of me finishing my certification, I ended up deathly sick. And I dropped like 25% of my body weight. I actually went down to 92 pounds at my lowest point, and I was in severe pain on a regular basis. My ankles, my knees, hips, sometimes my shoulder joints. I was in digestive distress all the time. My body was not digesting food or absorbing nutrients. And the medical doctors said, there's nothing wrong with you. So we had to look for alternative answers because we weren't just going to give up. There were 5 children at home, and we're like, well, we have to do something. So we ended up seeking holistic, natural help, if you will. And it was the first time that I had really considered how much our emotions and our mind and our spirit impact the physical body. And they said, you can come here and we can put you on a nutritional detox for a week, and we will do all this lymphatic massage and detoxifying exercises with you, all of these wonderful things, which are important in that process. But if you don't do the emotional release work behind all of this, getting rid of everything that's going on within you at a cellular level, causing your body to react in this way, then you'll go home and become sick all over again. And I said, well, okay, let's do that. And so that was our journey into what it is that we share with the world now, which is understanding not just the importance of fitness, or we like to call it movement, and nutrition, but the critical piece of the spiritual work, the mindset work, the emotional work, that is the glue that holds everything together. Because without that, and we had this conversation before we started filming, where you could be on a nutrition plan that has the best results of anybody out there, the highest rated nutrition plan in the world, that's going to help you release 60 pounds in 60 days, the best one on the market. But if you have something emotional going on, if there's something at the spirit level that's causing you to hold on to that weight for protection or something else, it won't go away. Or it will go away and it'll come right back as well. So those are that's how this journey started. And
it was the catalyst. I mean, that really did it. And at that point in time, it was like this aha moment, like, we have to tell everybody what in the world they need to do, because so many people were fixated on just going to the gym and working out, saying, listen, I want this, body composition that I'm looking for, and the gym is going to do that for me. Then there was other people that have been trying every diet known to man, and they're once again, they're looking for a certain body composition or the way they feel. And some people were like, listen, I'm actually doing both. And for Jenny and myself, I mean, we were both on that same page, and we didn't really understand what mindset meant. I mean, where energy release work meant. It was, I mean, so does that mean we see a shrink? What does that mean? I mean, a psychologist, psychiatrist. I mean, do you put us on drugs? I don't know. What do you do? And it has nothing to do with that. It was as far from that as you could go, because whenever there's nothing wrong with those practices, but it's a lot of times a lot more complaining than working on you. And that's where it's whenever you stop the complaining, stop the pointing fingers to other people out there, whenever you start taking responsibility for your own actions and your own words and your own thoughts, instead of projecting it out to other people and what other people are doing to you, then that's whenever you gain this respect for yourself, and you can uplift yourself. And it's almost like, it's almost like, I feel like a magician sometimes, where it's like levitating. I mean, you just feel like you're being lifted off the ground because you have this, and that's where we wanted to then be able to share it. And our goal was to change the paradigm of wellness in the world. We thought, quite frankly, it was going to be just those three areas. And then as we continue to grow, then the spirituality really came into play even more, and understanding how that is that levitation that brings you up, because I can do all that emotional release work, but it's coming from somewhere, and understanding where it comes from, and understanding how important our heart is. It's not just, we think like way too much. We think our brain controls it all. And it's not about our brain. It's that heart, and it is all of it. But it comes so much from here, and it's not. And please understand one thing, and that is, if you're looking at growing yourself, it doesn't take a book, it doesn't take a class, doesn't take a coach, it doesn't take just you. It takes all these things and continually growing and doing it, because people sometimes look at us, and maybe we're on stage, or maybe we're right here, and people are like, well, I can't do all that, and it's like, how did they do it? And they wanted like right away, and it's stop getting it right away. It's about taking slow steps to get where you need to go, and being aware, knowing that once you become aware, you can't go backwards. You can't erase it. You can't get on the eraser and go
warning.
And so you become aware, and you keep on going forward, and that's exactly what we did. It was taking those steps until we got to a point where we learned as much as we can about nutrition, and we're still learning. We learn even about how fitness affects our body, how mindset works, and the spirituality of it, and all these other different things. And it's always being a student, knowing because we always joke around, but there are people always ask us how, and we tell them it's the wrong question. First they got to ask themselves why, and then we personalize the how. But then beside the hows live the I knows, and then the I shoulds live on the other side. And some people you'll talk to, it's like, oh yeah, I know that. Are you doing it? No. Oh, why not? But So and it's like and then it's like, yeah, I know I should. Why aren't you doing it?
But you're exactly right, because when you were saying people want to go to the gym and they want this body, or they want to have this weight, the real question is why. Like, that's how you start.
Yes.
Yeah. So it looks like you're doing a whole bunch of stuff, but really it starts with that question: why do I want to look like that? Why? And that's once you can even go there, because we don't ask ourselves those questions, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And that's a huge indicator and a huge channel into the emotional and the spiritual and the mentality parts.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
What's happening that makes me want to not be who I am and think that that's going to look
And be that.
and be different.
And that will
Exactly.
solve all my
And
problems.
that will solve
Yeah,
the
and
problem.
that's where getting, and it's a really, really deep why.
It is.
You know,
Yes.
and so
Not that surface level
the
thing.
example of one client we always reference is the woman that wants to release 20 pounds, and it has nothing to do with what she thinks her body should look like or the 20 pounds or the jeans that she wants to fit in, but it has to do with there's a fear inside of her that her marriage is going to fall apart, and then she would have, you know, a family that was separated and her children would go through that. It came all the way down there when you really get to it,
Yeah.
right? And the insecurities that she had around that, suddenly the dynamics around really releasing those 20 pounds are totally different than they
Right.
were when it was just, oh, I'm just going to go on a diet for 30 days
The
and release
how
20
and the
pounds.
shoulds be changed dramatically, or if not go away, because
Right.
then it changes everything.
It's true.
Those questions, those
Yeah.
inner questions.
Yeah.
Oh, you guys are
And I love your focus on taking responsibility for yourself, because I think a lot of times, even though it seems easier to point fingers and blame other people, in the end, when we realize we are in control, it's very empowering.
And that's what'll break the pattern.
Yes, because
Yes.
you shift out of the victim. I can't change because of this, they did this, and so
into the creator.
yes.
Yes.
You know, you mentioned pattern, and a lot of times people don't see their own patterns. That's why they need
Right.
somebody else.
Yeah.
I mean, and as a matter of fact, I mean, if you know, if you're married or you have a significant other, they're normally telling you your patterns, and you don't want to listen. And it's like, why do you think it's nagging? And it's not nagging. It's like, no, you're doing this, and you don't even know it.
Yes.
And then of course, you know what happens is that they hear it from somebody else, and it's like, did you know what I heard today? And you've been like, I've been telling you that for so many years.
Somebody said something yesterday at a retreat. They said they wanted to design a coffee mug that said, "You don't need to remind me of that. I told you 6 months ago I'd get it done."
Yeah. But you know, it is those patterns that, you know, you need somebody else to look at, because I mean, we kind of say it is that you don't see the label on your own box. Because you're in your box, and you've got to be open to letting people, if as long as they are integrity, as long as there's love and there's that trust, then let them tell you what you need to hear, and that way you can be aware of that.
And that is a sacred something. I mean, I have credentials of doing it, but there's something about I know the process, but to have somebody hold space for me or to be there with me, I can't do it all by myself. There is something about getting help from someone else to in that way, whether they show it to you or whether they can just. There's just something in that. It's like a savior mentality, you know. It really makes it 10 times easier to have somebody share that space with me and help me through my issues.
Right.
So hiring or getting somebody to help you is not giving up. Like that is, you're going to exponentially change your growth and your so what you
Right,
guys do.
because even as a practitioner, right? So we will work with someone individually to release whatever it is inside of them energetically and at the cellular level in their body that is attracting this and causing the pattern to repeat in their life. But yet we work with an outside coach for ourselves that works with us to do our own work. And so I feel that even the best, most well-known practitioners out there that are doing this type of work with people, they still are working with somebody in and of themselves, because you can't. It's just not the same.
It's not.
And it's not, and it's and some people may think, you know, and I thought this at one point in time, is a book is my coach, but I've never had a book like hit me over the head a couple times to say, why aren't you following me? And many times what happens with books is that we read this book and we take what we want to out of it, and then we're like, and then it didn't work. We're like, why didn't this book failed me also? Is because you didn't follow the book. You took what you wanted to out of it, which is generally the easy things.
Right.
You didn't want to do the work. And as a matter of fact, I mean, I think just a few weeks ago, there was this one book that you were reading, I think from Deepak, and it was there was these this stuff that you needed to do within it. And, you know, so it's got this question, and then you've got to write this stuff down. And how many times in the past I see that in there, and I'm like, I'll I don't need to do that. I'll just keep on reading.
Yes.
And it's like, no. There's a reason why they have that in there, is so you're supposed to do it, and then you can go on. But we just want to get through it, because then we think we're going to have this moment, and it's like, wow, it's all magical, but it's not. I mean, you've got to, it's sometimes it's hard. I mean, we tell people that what we can help you with is very simple, but it's not easy.
Right.
It's simple but not easy, and whenever they, but they want easy. And the greatest things in our lives were not easy. I mean, it wasn't easy for her to go through, in her third marriage, a divorce, for us to get to each other. That wasn't easy.
Right.
I mean, do you think, we'd say, oh yeah, I can't wait to repeat that again.
Right.
I mean, it's like if somebody showed it us in a timeline, say, this is what you had to do to find each other, would you go through this? Most people would be like, really? It's like, no, but that's why it happens the way it does, because we wouldn't choose that path many times over.
And I think with the book, our own perception gets in the way.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're working with someone, they can keep you from allowing your perception to get in the way. So we had a situation come up yesterday, and I just loved this, where somebody had indicated that they had a mental challenge that they were dealing with that was going to be with them forever, that they had been diagnosed as bipolar, and that she said, I know I will always be bipolar, I just have to find the tools that I need to manage through it. And the question back, which one of our coaches posed, and I just love this, he said, what if you're wrong? What if your belief, your perception that because there was a diagnosis is that you have to live with that the rest of your life is wrong? What if there is something we can do, something we can release that is within you that will allow that to be wrong,
Right.
to
What
be
if that's just
there's
one
a different
possibility?
truth. Exactly. And so that type of awareness, a book is never going to say that to you. As soon as your own perception creeps in, and if she had just been reading a book and that popped into her head, well, this is something I'm just going to have to live with. That book isn't going to say, well, what if you're wrong?
Right.
What if there is another possibility? And so that's the power of getting someone that can have a different perception, a different filter that they see the world through.
Yeah. Well, and I love what you're talking about with the emotions, because several years ago I did a 90-day program, and it was really intensive, nutritionally intensive, physically and emotionally as well. And what I was most scared about were the workouts, like,
how am I going to
kill me? How am I going to survive? And they were definitely hard, but the hardest part and the biggest fight was the emotion, because you put that weight on for a reason, and that had become a protection for me against some emotional things I wasn't ready to address. And so in that class, the weight started coming off, but what I wanted more than anything was just to put it back on. All of a sudden I felt unsafe. And so all the emotional process that we went through to help me feel safe releasing that weight, that was the hardest part of the class, not the physical stuff. That was the hardest part.
I totally believe, I can see that, and I believe that and it's interesting when you think about even the dynamics of our body holding on to weight and what that physically is that's happening in there. And what you just talked about is you felt completely vulnerable and unsafe when they took that out of you. You wanted to put it back on, because the weight we hold on to when we're holding on to this excess fat, it's because we're surrounding the toxins that could then damage our vital organs and ultimately kill us. So not only physically had you taken away all your protection to allow those toxins out, but so many of those toxins were created originally through thought, through stress. And so now your vital organs were exposed, vulnerable to literally, we feel that could kill me. Right? And so this vulnerability that is then exposed through that physically and emotionally, it's all so connected. And
wow.
And you said something, the word stress, here's a quick statistic. It was from Bruce Lipton, and he said 95% of illness is from stress. But 100% of stress is from your limiting faulty beliefs. And that's really what it comes down to. And stress is a huge part of our daily lives that we all handle in a different way. Right. And now we do know that sometimes a little bit of stress can actually propel us to go a little bit forward, but whenever it becomes unmanageable, that's where it can cause the problems within our world. And one of the ways that I've actually helped myself personally, whenever you were mentioning about exercise, is going from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. And this actually then helped me with my stress in regards to exercise, where if I were to do, let's say I were to say, most of the times we say, I'm going to do 20 push-ups, or maybe I'm going to run 2 miles. And that's your goal. And it's like, okay, well, that makes complete sense. Why wouldn't it make any sense to me like that? But now I take it a step further. I said, you know what? I'm not going to do 20 push-ups. I'm going to do one more. And instead of actually doing 2 miles, I'm going to do 2.1 miles. Every single time, I'm going to go a little bit more because I'm not limited. I don't actually have to put a number to it. I can continue to go. And it's amazing what your body can do whenever you actually challenge yourself to have a growth mindset and to, instead of just saying, oh, boom, I did it, I'm done.
That's great. So do you when you work with people mostly one-on-one, or do you do in groups? It's like, how do you work with your clients?
Sure. Right at this point in our business, we work primarily with groups. We do a very limited amount of one-on-one coaching at this point. We found a couple of reasons for that. First of all, we could help more people more quickly by bringing it into a group, not only because you have large numbers, but what we found about the group setting, particularly at our retreats, because what we believe is that when we can all come together in the same space and stay there round the clock for 3 to 5 days, it creates a safe space that people can become vulnerable and they can open up to what the true challenges are that are going on within them that we can help to face and to fix within them. And so that dynamic happens, but the other dynamic happens is that we are from the belief that I am in you and you are in me, that we are all one in a way, and so I can resonate with every piece of what you have to say about what's going on in your world and vice versa, and so the learning dynamic increases exponentially when we're sitting here and someone is in their deepest, darkest depths of the stuff going on in their lives that's very hard for them to face, and then they hear the person next to them speak and they can say, I've been exactly where you are, and I have this problem too, and while it may look slightly different from the outside, the underlying dynamics of what's causing that to come into their life is exactly the same in so many ways. And oftentimes we find that abuse is a big thing that comes up, and people are able to open up for the first time ever in their life about these things, and because that safe space is created. And when we can start to break that pattern in their life, because oftentimes you find not only is it a pattern in their life, but it's multi-generational. And so that abuse has gone back generations and generations, and then if we don't break it, it could go forward. Not even that parent is necessarily abusing the child. That it's actually most times it hasn't been that case, but that child may even attract abuse in another way because it's in their generational line, and so they may be a victim of abuse from some other outside entity that comes in. And so these dynamics run deep within all of us. We are all of this human race, and it doesn't matter what country we're from or what color we are or what religion we are or anything. We are all in human form here, and these same dynamics are underlying all of us and what we're living with, and it may show up as drug addiction, and it may show up in an abusive relationship, and might show up in food addictions, or the inability to commit to respecting your body in certain ways. It shows up in all different formats, but we can all relate to each other. And then even when one person in the room is going through direct healing that we're working with, everybody in the room is affected by that direct healing. And so it's a win-win for everybody. And we've just found that the dynamics of the healing in that group setting is so much more effective And then the people also feel like they don't just have us.
Yeah.
And there's
They
a
have
connection.
a whole circle.
Exactly. There's another connection, and it's like, wow, and we did this together. And they know that, you know, with the retreat, they come in. There's a lot of times aren't even sure what's going to happen. They have no idea. They have this. They formulate a few things, and it's like, what? How's this going to go? But I'm not really certain. And then they come in. We close the door, and they know that they're in a safe space. Yeah. And once they're in a safe space, then they become vulnerable. And so then we allow the energy out there so they can just open up. And it's, I don't think there's ever been a time where people have just said, you know, it's like, hi, my name's Craig Dumanich and I live in Philadelphia and I do this and that. And it was all of a sudden they know because they are in this place that they can open up. And that's where the healing is, and just like Jenny said, it is just about that group atmosphere. Because, you know, we do, you know, coach a few people one-on-one, and we do enjoy doing it. But a lot of times, what is amazing, one of the questions we ask people is like, "Are you coachable?" And of course, everybody's like, "Of course I'm coachable." It's like, and then
it comes down.
Then we find out just a little bit later that they're not as coachable as they thought.
That's a good question. Yeah.
Yeah, and because it's just like that book that we talked about, that it's like, all right, I just want to get what I want to out of it, but I don't want to hear this other stuff that's going to make me uncomfortable. But that's where you become uncomfortable, is whenever you end up growing. And that is where the individual coaching, it can help, but at the same time, you know, we spend an hour together, an hour and a half on a Zoom call, and next thing you know, as soon as you're off that call, you're on to your next appointment, your next whatever. And it's, so you've learned, you've grown, but we just don't sometimes see the rapid results. But a lot of times they'll come to the retreats and then wind up doing maybe one-on-one coaching. So it's just a matter of, you know, pairing all that in.
That they come together.
Yeah, but if it's just one-on-one coaching, it doesn't seem to, it's because they just can't grow fast enough for themselves.
And then how do you take that into the corporate world?
Sure, you know, the whole evolvement into the corporate side for us comes, I think, because it's always been a place that we've loved and we wanted to go back and help in, because we came from it and we did the best that we could when we were in it to keep ourselves in a place of health and wellness, but we saw how many people struggled in that space. And so as we've moved into this side, one of the dynamics that we've seen is corporations nowadays are doing, I think, a tremendous job on bringing wellness programs into the workspace. The challenge is most of their staff and employees are not fully participating in the wellness programs, and so you have to ask, well, are we just checking off a box? Or are people truly resonating with this and getting value out of it so that we're getting a return on the investment? In most cases, the return on the investment isn't there. And I won't mention a company name, but there was a company the other week, and they are spending millions and millions and millions of dollars on a wellness program. And every Monday, they have a wellness authority come in and give a presentation during the lunch hours that people's lunch breaks would be. And they promote it out. And there are many, many weeks throughout the year, so we have 52 Mondays to work with, and literally no one will show up. Sometimes they'll get a handful of people, and you're talking about an office building that has 1,000 people in it, and yet you can't even get 5 people in a room at lunchtime to focus on their health wellness aspect. And so we wanted, our initial thought was, well, one, how do we increase that, right? So how do we get people to actually participate in it? So we've got to understand the emotional reasons and start addressing those of why aren't your employees participating in this, right? They have a resistance. There's some sort of resistance, otherwise they'd show up all day long. So it's either resistance, or they may not see the connection between the wealth that they're trying to create by showing up at work every day, right? They're showing up because they need to take a paycheck home to their family in most cases. So do they see the connection between that they're trying to accomplish there and their health and their emotional state that is impacting their financial wealth? And so this is critically important for the business leaders to understand, and for the executives to begin participating in this type of content as well themselves also.
Because if the employees don't see it, from the
Yeah.
top. I mean, then it's like, well, if they're not doing it,
Right.
why in the world should I do it?
Yeah.
It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
It's a
And
chore. It's another chore.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then the other piece is if you look at the entire success of a corporation, right? You have two different issues that crop up. You have absenteeism, people taking days off of work, and that might be for mental health or physical health. And by the way, when it's physical health, we know that every physical ailment has an underlying emotional cause to it. So it's still mental health, if you will, in a way. And then you also have what they call presenteeism, which is I show up at work today, but I'm only going to function at somewhere 50% of productivity or below because I'm distraught over the fact that I'm in pain, that I have an illness, that my marriage at home is
we
not
just got
going
to fight
well.
this morning.
Yeah.
My kids say, I mean, all these different things that are just in your brain.
Yeah, and so if we can help the employees and executives develop these life mastery skills to manage all of the different areas of their life more effectively and efficiently and find more fulfillment and happiness and health, now they're more productive at work. The company's profits go up. The executives are setting an example. Just as parents, we have to be an example for our kids.
Yes.
I can't just say, well, kids, eat your vegetables and exercise, and sit there on the couch eating my pizza and watching movies. Right? Like, same thing in the corporate world. And so there it's a combination of us being able to come in and work with the staff in the corporation and also to do executive retreats where we get the executives off property for 3 to 5 days, and we customize that content based on who exactly they are and what their needs are to develop the corporate culture and develop new communication practices and respect levels and help them with family dynamics and health.
Yeah, what we find is that they want to do all this professional development, and they want to be better salespeople, better marketing people. They want to have enough letters after their name to last a lifetime, and all that education is fine and dandy, and it may help you at a certain level, but it is about merging that professional development with personal development, and that is what is going to then really skyrocket what they're doing. Because I mean, we've both been in enough sales trainings, marketing trainings, time management trainings to make me this robot that I can be. And it's like, wait a minute. I mean, but it just all didn't click. And then a lot of times there's the top salesperson, and management's like, how in the world are they doing it? And it's all of a sudden you're there like, well, wait a minute, let him or her tell everybody what they're doing, and then we can duplicate that. Doesn't work, and it's because you're not them.
Because we're not robots.
No, exactly. And so they can't figure this out, and it's because they don't want to take that personal development road. They just want to take the professional development road, and that is, so by merging, that's where we're coming into play, showing that we can really uplift and up level the people in there, the executives, the employees, to a way that now it is going to affect every aspect of their life. And every aspect of their life, I mean, whenever you look at what we did, and Jenny said it at the beginning, is that we were there. I mean, we were the people that we were making good money. I mean, we were traveling. We had a corporate credit card, and that feels good to be able to spend somebody else's money. I mean, it just feels so good until and I'm sure a lot of people out there feel this way. And if you haven't yet, you may at some point where I don't want another steak dinner. I just want to eat pizza in my boxer shorts, and that's about it. Yeah. And because it's like you've made it so far, and you just want to feel normal about everything. And where I'm going with this is that you can make as much money as you want. You can feel like you've accomplished so much in your professional career potentially, but then you're unfulfilled in so many other aspects of your life. And you could actually be even making more money, believe it or not, and you can manifest even more things from, maybe, you're like, maybe I need a boat, maybe I need a Ferrari, maybe I need something else, but I can't even get it. And it's because all these other aspects of your life aren't functioning properly. And if you could really do that, because that's where professional development, there's a ceiling, and it's really hard to get past that. The personal development, that's what breaks the glass ceiling in your world. And that's where the magnitude of growth. I mean, it's almost like, that volcano that finally decides to erupt is because it's just like all this pressure. It's like, whew, and wow, now all this wonderful stuff comes in your life.
Yeah.
That's so true. Well, this leads me to another question. We would love to hear what your definition of wholeness is. What does wholeness mean to you?
Yeah, for me, it is when we have gotten ourselves to the point individually that we can live within our true integrity. And so that everything we are doing, everything that somebody's seeing from the outside is who we truly are, and it's the life we're living behind the scenes. And there's nothing going on that I say, I hope nobody's looking, because right now I'm going to go over here and do this, right? So I don't think that wellness means that I need to look like wholeness. Means that I need to look like the bodybuilder, have the perfect cover, magazine cover body, and I don't have to eat perfectly all the time, but I need to own who I am, what I am, and I need to live within complete integrity there. And then that's when we can be whole and continue to rise. But if there's anything in our life that is currently out of integrity, if there's anything that we're saying that we are that we really aren't, if we're putting on that facade that my family's perfect but at home there's abuse and we're fighting and screaming and yelling, or I'm saying that I'm taking care of myself in this way but underneath I'm hiding in the closet and doing whatever, there's how am I in complete integrity with my life? And so often I think that's not the case, and we often, I think, even times look to people and even have these idols that we look at, and then years later something comes out that none of us could have known, right? And we go, oh, and we're so deflated by that. And so this wholeness to me is living in that integrity, that it's not about being perfect, but it's about knowing exactly who you are and owning exactly that, and being real so that you can continue to grow.
Absolutely.
That's great.
Oh yeah. I mean, ditto. I mean, it's like I know, and for some of the millennials out there, ditto, that means whatever she said.
Oh yeah. Those are those purple and white copies we used to get as a kid in elementary school.
Yeah. It's but I completely agree. I mean, it is about the integrity, about the genuineness, and it is when I think about wholeness, it's about that. Everything that you can put together and wrap it into one, and it's in one beautiful present. And that's exactly who each one of us are individually. We are a unique present with our own wrapping paper and our own little bows and in our own little labels. But you need also somebody to tell you what that label is at times, because you really don't know how special you are. Because we're all special in our own very simple way, no matter who we are. I mean, I've said this many years ago before I even knew we were getting into this, which is that we're all equal. I mean, even somebody that is homeless, it's like you may think of them as, well, I mean, geez, look at them. But they've got their own gifts too. You just don't know what it is, and they don't even know what it is. But we all have our own gifts that we give to the world, so we're all equal, and that's to me that's wholeness, and that's why I don't think donut should exist, because you get that hole. It's like it should be the whole thing. I understand it cooks a little bit better, but it really is just. It's like we think of wholeness, and you think about that whole, but it's about really completing that whole within us.
Just fill it with icing, and then it'll be whole.
There you go.
I'm all about that one. And I'll just add one last thing to that, which is it's about being able to rise up into your power while allowing others to retain theirs as well. And that's a dynamic we see often in the corporates and that sort of thing. You have executives that are rising into power, but they fear allowing others to rise into theirs because that they would lose theirs. But if we can each rise into our own power, because it's completely separate and unique, and without diminishing anyone else's, because nobody else has power for us to steal. We just have to rise into our own, and there's unlimited, infinite amounts of power, and so we can each come into our own power, and then everybody can be stronger together.
Yeah, it's like it's not a destination. It's just stepping into wholeness. Is not like you have the homeless man has wholeness.
Yes.
Like we all have our we all just need to step into it. It's not that we don't own it to begin with. That's really the discovery. That's really asking those questions like you guys do with your at your retreats, is asking those questions. Questions.
Yeah.
Well,
Great.
one of the things that's kind of come out of your particular situation is your blended families and how you guys have supported people in blended families. How did that come about, and what kind of support do you offer?
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, so we, once again, you never know what's going to come up in life, and and I met this, gorgeous woman with a big heart, and so I had 3 kids from my first marriage. She had 1, and then we had 1 together. So it's hers, mine, ours, and it was. We weren't sure, how it was going to blend together. One of the first things that we did is when we were dating is that we just didn't bring the kids together right away. We wanted to make sure that we were, good as much as we possibly could. And then we brought the kids together, and it was like, oh wow, they all get together and they get along, and it was amazing. And then we decided to get married, and we wanted to have a child together, and we weren't sure how that was going to affect the dynamics. It was something that we wanted, but it was like, we're like, how's this going to go? And what was the most beautiful thing is I tell everybody that is the best gift we ever gave our other kids, because it was, this present changes all the time. Where think about whenever you open up a gift. As a kid, it's like after you're done playing with it, you figure it out. All right, on to the next one. Well, this little girl, you just can't. She changes all the time. So it was the most beautiful thing that we could have given them. And because of the disparity in age, where she is 8 and now the youngest of the older ones, they're 16. And so 8 years difference. It wasn't a competition. It was almost like oh, that's my toy. She
was their little science experiment. See what they could do with her and that sort of thing. But what was interesting was, when we fell in love, one of the things that I fell in love with most about him was how great of a father he was. He had dedicated every waking hour that he was not working were for his children. And so it was interesting when we were dating, I had to see him during the week when he didn't have the custody schedule, wasn't with them, and when he had him on weekends, like, he was off limits. He was not, there were no dates there. I couldn't see him, and I truly respected that, and I thought, wow, what an amazing father this man is, and that's really what I fell in love with. But then that's where it gets interesting, because what I fell in love with most about him, as soon as you get through that newness of a relationship, right, and reality starts to kick in, all of these things started coming up within me that I now realize to be that I was craving the love of a father so much, and I have a father that is very loving, but he showed that to us through financial support and those sorts of things, but there wasn't as much emotional and physical, loving and that sort of thing, and so I was still craving that. And so then you fast forward to the dynamics of this marriage and blended family, where I became jealous of his daughter because he was such a good dad to her that I wasn't getting it. And so it started causing dynamics within our relationship that I couldn't handle. So suddenly we were back in that same cycle of what caused my divorces and what caused his divorce. And so, it's great when you're in the early stages of any relationship.
Everything's bliss.
It's all chemical.
And then normally, right, in almost every relationship, there will be these dynamics that come up where both partners are reacting to certain things that the other person is doing in a negative way, and they don't understand the underlying reason why. Like, where is this coming from? What is being triggered within me? And so it's very easy to point fingers and say, you're not giving me enough attention. You're not doing this. You're not doing that. It has nothing to do with that. There was no amount of attention this man could have given me to make up for what was missing inside of me. So I had to resolve my need within me and let go of that in order for him to ever be able to continue to make me happy and for us to have a lifelong marriage. And so there are always things that come up. The most recent journey that we've been on with this is about communication and consistent schedules, because it's become very challenging as we have 4 teenagers right now. 3 of them are 16 and 1 is 17.
Wow.
So we have part-time jobs, we have cross-country, tennis, wrestling, golf, debate club, college search and applications, tennis with the little one, CCD with the little one, school activities with her. So plus our business and our relationship, right? So how do we manage all of those things? And where he is like kind of fly by the seat of his pants type, more relaxed around scheduling, I need much structure. And so we have recently hit another sort of bridge, like rocky bridge in our relationship, where we go, how do we manage this? Because what works for you doesn't work for me.
Right.
Yes.
And so we've had to, and interestingly, bring even the children into the dynamics and create new forms of family communication through group texting. And so it's being willing to always come back to that place of pure love and being whole within you to express what you need within the relationship, and help the other person to speak compassionately so that they can understand your needs. So you can decide, is he willing to meet those needs that I have? Am I willing to meet his needs? And how can we come to a common ground that works for the entire family to move forward with this in a loving, compassionate way so that everybody's whole, right? Back to that wholeness again.
Yes.
And what we found is the benefit that even the kids are receiving from that. They didn't realize how much they were missing having structure and knowing in advance who had what on which days and how everybody's schedule was going to look. And it's so powerful now that on Wednesday night I can message all of them in an instant and say, Dad and I are going to go on a date Saturday night. And so from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. we will be gone, and this is how we're going to handle it and what you're going to do. And now suddenly, instead of at 5 o'clock Saturday afternoon saying, oh, by the way, Dad and I decided we're going to go out tonight, maybe in their mind they needed to have a conversation with one of us that night, or they were expecting that we were all going to have family time. But so if you can help people work through these things, and in blended families, setting boundaries with the exes also becomes a critical piece, which most people haven't considered or have been unable to do. So setting and holding boundaries so that we can remain a solid, whole family unit and function in and of ourselves while respecting them, but also having them respect us as a family unit.
Oh, that's so great.
And that can, the divorce rates for blended families and second and third marriages and, on and on is even higher than the divorce rate for first marriages. And so how do we begin to bring resolution there and help people to, people want love in their lives and whatever that looks like.
And setting boundaries, is a key thing, but at the same time, it's not only just setting the boundaries, but it's keeping them. That's the hard part. Because we can all set the rules. It's like, oh, you can't do this, whatever it may be. But then, our 8-year-old, daughter, she gives me like, oh, but Daddy, and it's like, oh my goodness, I'm melting. It's like, and it's like, no, I've got to stay strong. And it's about those certain boundaries that that you set up, but it's keeping them, and it really, that is the harder part of it. And then the other things you mentioned about dating, it was one of those things where it's kind of been on and off within our relationship, and because of work, because of multiple things. And it's one of those important things because whenever, we were young and we were dating all the time, how do you think you get to know each other? Gee whiz. And then you think you know each other and it's like, well, you kind of stop dating as much. But we realized how important it was for our own selves, but also what people may not understand is about teaching them, the children, whenever and if they get married, that they also need to date.
Right.
Because if we're there for them, and then if they feel that they need to be there just for their children, and then their marriage happens to break apart, it's like, how did that happen? Well, because they lost that connection. And so you need to keep that connection going and that communication going. And you even said it with love. That compassion and talking with that love. And it's because it's not about pointing fingers, it's about taking responsibility.
And it's so funny to say about it is that when we first started dating again, when we had kind of left that behind, and then we were like, wow, we need to date again. We found ourselves in this situation where we'd go out on a date, but all we could talk about was the kids and the business, right? We still weren't dating. We were just having a meeting in a different location. So we literally had to start taking dates where we couldn't talk to each other. So we would go see these loud live music, places where there was no way, but we could just be present with each other in a state of enjoyment. So that different energy where we weren't talking or discussing children and boundaries and schedules and the business and our next trip and our next event. We would just sit there listening, singing, dancing, but we couldn't communicate with each other. And so as much as that sounds funny that we have a date but you don't communicate, that was the most productive thing we could do until we got ourselves in that pattern of making all of those topics off limit.
Wow.
When we went on a date. Yeah. And so, for some people, maybe it's go sit in a movie, but he knew that would turn into a nap time for me. And as much as I probably needed a nap too, that wasn't an effective way for us to date. He's like, well, that's what happens every night when we go to bed. You fall asleep before we...
Well, I'll tell you when you're really going to appreciate what you've done. The day you become empty nesters. And that is, Andrew and I became empty nesters just a year ago.
Congratulations.
And it's a crazy transition where your life has been the kids and the commotion and the schedules and the focus is everywhere else, and then all of a sudden everything else is gone, and you're staring at this stranger across the table if you haven't nurtured that relationship. You're like, I can't remember. Do I like you? What are we doing here together?
That's awesome.
And we've had a lot of dates over the years, and I have never been so grateful as now, because we are in love. We are. In fact, someone said, "Oh yeah, being empty nesters is like being honeymooners but with money, or newlyweds but with money, right?
Yes.
It's a whole new.
And I don't know what the divorce rate is for empty nesters, but I from what I hear, you hear quite often that once their children, especially once they finish college and they feel like they're independent, whatever that means nowadays, but that then they're like, well, we stayed together all these years for the children, now let's both go live our own lives separately. Right? And then, so they do end up divorcing at that point, and you think, gosh, all those years you put in, all the, and...
Well, the sad thing is it's the distractions gone. That's the thing. Yeah. The distraction's no longer there, and so you got to work at the not having the kids be a distraction. It's really easy to go into that. It really, really is. And as a child growing up, my parents didn't get along. I would have loved for them to go on a date. I mean, that would have fed me as much as them taking me somewhere.
Yes.
To see them go and respect and care for each other. So I don't think it takes from the kids actually at all.
Even though sometimes they think it might, right? Our youngest is funny. I'll tell you a quick story that I think will make people laugh, is that the other week we were going out on a date, and it was actually around my birthday, and so and it was a beautiful Saturday. The weather was perfect. We were going to go to a restaurant down by the water. It's about 45 minutes from our house. And so she was going to stay home with her 16-year-old brother, Rocco. And so right about 2 hours before we were going to leave, she says, I really don't feel very well. My belly kind of hurts, and I knew, because we've been with her her whole life. I'm like, she's perfectly fine. She's not sick. She just doesn't want us to go out tonight. And I kept telling her, look, you're going to be fine. You and Rocco, just do whatever. Just have fun together. Don't worry about it. Have whatever you want for dinner. Not even putting restrictions on that. Like, this is what you're going to do, whatever you want. And so she was crying a little bit when we left, and she came outside with us to wave goodbye to us, the sun that was out. And he drops me off at the front of the restaurant because it was packed down there, because they have this huge outdoor deck and on the water. And so he drops me off, and I go and I get us a seat right by the water. And before he even could walk back in from parking the car and sit down with me, she was FaceTiming me. And all I see when I answer FaceTime is her holding something up to her nose and mouth like this. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, she must really be sick, and she just got sick, and she's holding a towel over her face, right? And she's crying. And I'm like, oh my goodness, what's wrong? Are you sick? And she's like, no, but Rocco and I went outside in the lawn and we were playing lacrosse, and he threw the lacrosse ball when I wasn't paying attention, and it smacked me in the nose. And she's like, I've got ice on my nose. And so she's all, and I'm like, wow, like she so deeply within her wanted us to be home with her for whatever reason that she had manifested this for, and then she said, I'm like, well, I'm like, is it bleeding? No. I said, well, just put ice on, 20 minutes, ice off. I said, let me see it. She took it off. I'm like, it's not broken, it's not even swollen. I'm like, you're fine, it just hurts. And she's like, you're not coming home? I'm like, no, I can't, there's nothing I can do for you. I'm like, by the time I get home in 45 minutes, you're going to be smiling and laughing anyway.
Right.
You know, so, but it was so funny to get through this, that sometimes, you know, even there, it's like, as parents, we have to take a step back and go sometimes, you know, are they fine?
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, and you can know,
Yeah.
right? I would never, if she was really hurt or really sick, but
And your first one, sometimes you don't know.
Yeah.
Because
By number 5,
you're like way protective about things. But when you're on 5, all of a sudden it's like, you know, I mean, you're A-okay.
Although it's funny because there were 3 times in a matter of a month when that happened that I took to her and her older brother, my older son, to the doctor for concussions. She got hit in the head, like right here with a tennis ball, and had a concussion. And then she got hit in the nose and was going to the doctor the next day for a checkup. So I said, well, can you just check her for a concussion to make sure she's okay? And then he got hit in the head at wrestling, and I had to take him in for a concussion. And he had one that lasted longer, but I'm like, you know, before, I'm like, these kids, like, they keep getting injured. What? Which is something emotional behind all of that too, right? I'm like, what are they attracting to themselves?
It's nice to have that tool though to be able to look at, and sometimes it shows up and it's like, that's what's going on, and other times it's not as prevalent.
It's not as clear.
But it's so helpful to look at those and to really pay attention to those messages that your body and your environment are trying to tell you.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So true.
Oh yeah. And it's like, and we're always, we don't pay attention to that enough. I mean, you just bring up a good point, especially whenever it comes to the food we're eating. I mean, it's, you know, we just, a lot of times just are shoving down food, and then, you know, a little bit later we're like, it's like, oh man, I don't feel so well, or, you know, maybe you've got gas or whatever it may be. It's just like headache, fog.
Indigestion.
But we just continue to eat because it's like, well, that's what we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And one of the big things that we do with clients is you've got to be more aware of what you're putting in your body and how you feel. Yeah. And that way you can understand a little bit more of how your body's reacting to things. Mm-hmm. Maybe it doesn't like raw food. Maybe it doesn't like a certain particular spice. Exactly. Mm-hmm. It may anything that could be, and it's like, oh, that's how I feel whenever I eat this. And you start picking up, we make them aware so they can start picking up their own patterns. And now if we can actually potentially eliminate, you know, what they think is causing these issues, it's like, oh, wow, I do feel better since I've eliminated that. And that's one of the things that we help people out and understand that, because we just seem to consume food as Americans, just not really even tasting it sometimes. It's like we're like a vacuum cleaner, you know, just like, all right, let's hurry up, let's suck it down, and I understand why this doesn't happen to me.
So true. So true.
That's so great. Well, in the segments that you did for the library, I feel like I learned more in those 5 segments than anything I've learned in the last 5 years.
Fantastic.
Thank you very much.
Well,
So amazing.
People that want to learn more about health, you need to be a member of the library so that you can hear those powerful segments. We just appreciate all that you've shared, and
you're so welcome.
How you're uplifting people and really enriching their lives through their emotional, physical, spiritual, all of that wholeness and wellness that's
thank you.
going to help them to live life whole.
Yes. Well, thank you for putting this all out there so people can be whole. I mean, which is really, which is cool. I mean, you're creating the space, which is amazing and unique. So thank you.
And for those watching, if you've never met these two in person, just the most beautiful women inside and out, just hearts of gold, and just the easiest people in the world to be with and work with and design with and create. And you two are just amazing souls. And so if you have the chance, be sure to meet them in person, because your life will never be the same in a good way. And we're just honored to be here with you, and thank you so much.
Ditto.
Thank you. We appreciate you. Thanks so much.
Thanks.